Oh, thank you, Ms. Praveena, for the warm introduction. So, let me first introduce myself. My name is Maria George, and I have been working as a teacher for the past 5 years in both rural and urban settings. I have had the opportunity to work in different curriculums like IB, IGCSE, and in a rural community school. So, along with this, I have also co founded my startup called LingoLilt, where we try to conduct inquiry based language sessions and reading sessions. And most of these sessions are based on a bilingual method where we give more focus for the mother tongue and we conduct spoken English and reading sessions for the learner in a way that the child does not feel alienated from the mother tongue and they also are able to comprehend. So, here I would like to present a topic called co-constructing success criteria, which I have been working on for quite a long time. So this is based on my experience of working with grade 7 English learners. Before I start, let me just start with a quote, which I have been reading from a book called Whole New Mind, written by Daniel Pink. The future belongs to a very different kind of person with a very different kind of mind, creators and empathizers, pattern recognizers, and meaning makers. So, what does this mean for our ESL learners who are already pattern recognizers and meaning makers, but they have just found the language, so they don't know how to express it yet? Many a time, we as teachers, including myself, I have tried to drill several patterns and word meanings, teaching them how to write, making sure they finish on time, and they produce the right product. So, after several failed attempts, I realized that that was not what is needed. We know that grammar, especially writing, is a very tiring subject. It is not like fun like science, and it doesn't involve solving problems like math. So, children tend to find this subject, reading and writing, kind of boring and kind of tiresome. And they are, so I realized that they need to get a sense of ownership and they have to have the opportunity to use all their senses. So that was how I decided to try out something where they can also become teachers or co-creators in the process. And so the rationale for my task or from my study was children in the school where I have working. I worked in Haryana where the children they speak Haryanvi as their mother tongue and they are from a rural farming background. So because of that, they don't have much exposure to the language and they have zero family support. And school is the only place where they get to speak English, where R1 or English is a completely alien language to them. So I realized that they needed different kinds of methods where they get proper guidance, proper way that they feel that it is not a punishing subject, but they feel that their writing should be purposeful, not punishing. And third thing is that I wanted them to develop a sense of ownership so that that would lead to a deeper learning process. So this is how I decided to do something called co-constructing success criteria, which allows learners to surface their own thinking. And in this process, they become co-creators from being passive learners. This is something that I have read by an author called Paulo Freire from his book Pedagogy of the Oppressed. So he believes that teacher children, also youth and citizens, they should be passive. They should not be passive creators. They should be co-learners. So I decided to take that into this. And the process for my narrative writing, which is the task which I had given them a pre-learning task. I started this process in grade 6 itself. So I first taught them how to write in paragraphs and how to write in sequences. So this was explicit because they don't have an idea of the pattern and structure. So I needed to first teach that, explain how to write them using the hamburger strategy. And I taught them how to write in detail and I explained how they can write in summaries using different words for paraphrasing. And the next thing was they have to write multiple drafts. So in my school where I work, children just don't write one paragraph or one essay and just give it to the teacher. They have to write multiple drafts. So it is like a 1 week process. They first write the first draft, then the second draft, and then teachers have to give detailed feedback. And then the final draft will be a polished one according to their level. So we believe that children, along with teachers, everyone should strive for excellence. It is not just one draft and then the feedback is done and given. So this is how I decided to start my activity. So after I did the pre-learning task, I gave them a self-reflection activity. So they have to find on their own, where am I now? Where am I now? And what do I need to achieve? So they wrote different statements like I can write in full sentences, I can use in punctuations, and I need to do something more. So they know where they are and they can themselves understand where they have to reach. And so these are some clips which I have taken. These are some charts that they created, different snapshots. What I found was that when children are guided through these structured metacognitive tasks, where they are thinking about their own thinking, like self-reflection, goal setting, and sentence starters. So they begin to articulate what they know and what they need. And the thinking is already there, but since their language is different, they speak in Haryanvi and Hindi, they are not able to express it in English. So they needed proper guidance on how to do the same in English. And this sentence starters were very powerful for ESL learners because the barrier isn't the idea, it's finding the right way to express that. And also, they were more encouraged to express their thinking first in their mother tongue. So, like I mentioned before, they are first encouraged to speak in the Hindi so that they can explain the concept more and then slowly transition to English because the goal was never to suppress the language. English is just a bridge into English expression. So mother tongue is not actually a crutch. It is a resource. It is not an obstacle. So this is how we might have learned about the different thinking routines developed by Harvard Project Zero. So they talk about metacognition, and there is a lot of research going on in that. So this is how learners become aware of their own thinking process, and they set small achievable goals, and gradually they own the criteria they themselves help construct. So these are some the visible thinking routines that I used in my class. The first one was goal setting. I asked them to write what they want to achieve, and then I used mind maps and jigsaw thinking. I gave them the first idea of narrative. They did not know what narrative was, but slowly I gave them different prompts and I asked them to just write small points, whatever they want. Even if it's in Hindi, it's fine. So because the primary goal is narrative writing and rubric. This was just the starting. So they can write in Hindi or English. And I asked them, I wrote all the ideas on the board and I created a Venn diagram. So this was what I got from the Venn diagram, like how to write a narrative. This is not what I had taught them. It was through a lot of inherent multiple guidance and multiple prompts that I got to this point where they were able to say different rules on how to write a narrative, how to use punctuations, how to write paragraphs. And they created a comment list and they were able to rank it also. So the goal is that we as teachers, we have to give them different kind of prompts. We have to prompt them in the right way so that they reach the right place. And they were also able to find their level and they were able to find on their own what they need to achieve, what is the most important rule, what is the least important rule. So these were just stepping stones to creating a rubric. And in the end, after they did the Venn diagram and they made their own checklist and their own ranking criteria, I gave them a self-assessment checklist. So even this was not something I just printed and gave them as a worksheet. I had consolidated all their statements, all the statements that they made, and then I made a comment checklist and I gave it to them. So I asked them to assess what do you want to do and what level are you at so that they know what they have to do, because otherwise what children do is they are very confident, especially children who are in before puberty. As you know, they are which is a good thing. They are very confident in themselves, but sometimes we need to use that confidence in the right direction. So they are very self-aware and they know where to improve. And it is very targeted, very pointed. So this is one thing which I did. The rules for good writing. One was creating the common rules and then ranking them so that this can be a common list from where they can start creating their rubric. And so this was one thing. This was the next part of my narrative writing and the rubric creation process. I divided them into groups and I gave them different sample essays. So they had to read these essays in their groups. So also these texts were differentiated across three levels: basic, developing, and advanced, so that every child could access the content at their own level. And alongside this, I gave them different ICANN statements, which they themselves constructed. So this would be a benchmark. I did not give them the statements directly. I just gave them a common checklist. So they have to choose which should be added and which should be not added. So this was not a teacher standard, but a statement they could genuinely own and work towards. So when I was working alongside the groups, when I was walking around the groups, I observed that they were being little very articulate, and children who are maybe they are not good at writing, but they can express their points well. So they were able to work better in groups. And the another thing about this is that the questions I asked, it were very gentle and open. It was not corrective. There was no do not statements. So I asked questions like, do you think these look similar? Because children tend to write, if we ask the children to express themselves, how was your day? Today was good. And how was the exam? It was okay. It was well. They don't say more than that. I think it's something which is very inherent in most children in Indian schools in India. They don't know how to express themselves, express their feelings better. So I asked them questions like, do you think these look similar? Or how do you think this could be changed? Or what might this look like if we took it a step further? So I nudged them without directing, because so that the thinking remained thus. And I think that this is the heart of differentiation in this context, not giving different children different tasks and just leaving them there, but actively closing the gap so that they don't feel that they are differentiated and they are working at their own level. And in this, the final goal was that no child would sit in that classroom feeling invisible, stuck, or left out of the process. And this was the statement which you can see on the screen. This was what they created on their own. I gave them different levels. I elicited that from them, from the students itself, and they wrote I gave them the first prompts and they wrote the sentences on their own, the levels and the where it should be, everything. So finally, we reached my students and we reached the final product. We had three groups and they created three different rubrics. The reason why there are three different rubrics of different marking is that I gave them articles which were of different levels, but I did not tell them that this was a basic article or this was a developing article. It was the same content, but it was written in different ways. So if one article was written in a way where it did not use a lot of grammar structure, it did not have similes, or it did not use proper sentence starters, or it did not have a lot of detail. So they already had it in their mind from grade 6 that you have to have detail one, you have to have supporting details. So they knew that this could be a basic, developing, or advanced article. And then I gave them an article of a different level, developing. And so along with that, I kept on asking them, I kept on walking between groups and asking them different questions. I also saw that because they had this thing in mind of how to read an article, of the rules of writing an article, of reading an article, they knew what should come when we are writing a narrative or how to score a rubric. So the rules that they created, basic, developing, advanced, and exceeding, I first told them in Hindi, and then I told them this is the word for this for it in English. If it Hindi, it means if Hindi it has one word. This is what we call for the same word a better word in English. And they scored the article. So when they presented, after that, they presented. These are some these are some of the rubrics, and this is the narrative, the final narrative that they wrote. These are from different levels. So I have some children who are good at writing or who are fast learners, and some children who are not good at writing, but they can express themselves verbally. I realized that when through this group activity, through this chart making, and through this thinking routines, even the children who were on the beginning level, they slowly could move to the next level, and they did not feel inferior, like I have to get 10 out of 10. They could move from their level to the next. So they were competing against themselves, not against others. And the key takeaways that I got from this was that one, they were more there was more motivation and more engagement across different learner profiles. So in my class, and I think it is common in most classes, there are different kind of learners. Some children are visual learners, some children are reading and writing based, they like reading and writing. And some children are kinesthetic learners, some children learn by listening, they are auditory learners. So this was a task or an activity that enabled learners of all profiles, learners of different levels, of different learning abilities to come together and create something of their own. So this appealed to diverse learners, those who prefer writing, speaking, or visual expression, and it made this narrative writing feel more purposeful rather than something that is imposed on them. Along with this, so before that, I had given them a lot different model texts, and I gave them a set of vocabulary words. I did not give them as a list. I asked them to read the text and take it out of the text, find the difficult words, use the dictionary and find the meaning. And I kept on talking about how we can connect it to your personal experience, to their context. So this gave them a way to articulate the thoughts that they already had in speech and in writing. So slowly from that, moving from guided scaffolding to independent production, learners not only wrote their own narratives, but they were able to defend and justify their choices. When they were presenting their rubric, the students, along with myself, I made sure that they were asked different questions. So they had to defend their rubric. I asked them, and even the children who were listening, they asked them different questions. We have the same article, so how come you gave a different score? What, can this be changed? So why is the score different for that? So what about the other level? Do you think this should come here? So they were able to defend their article. They said that we gave this score because we believe that it needed more similes, or it needed more connecting words, or it should have been written in a better structured way. Like it did not follow the hamburger writing strategy. And they were able to defend and justify their choices. So when along with this, when learners have access to books in the class, there is a small class library where the books are kept on different levels. So and they are not given the books, I don't assign them the books, they take it on their own. So when I first kept the books on different levels, they did not find it very they found it a little strange. Why are the books on different levels? But then when they started reading, they realized, okay, these books are difficult, some books are easy. So when they are progressing from one level to the next, they are internalizing all those vocabulary, they are internalizing the structure and how to write about different experiences. So this reading shifts from an obligation to a choice. So they are themselves taking the books and they are themselves reading and writing about it. And this also leads to a better language exposure because, as I said before, here in school is the only place where they get to read and they get to speak in English. So this goes beyond formal instruction. So to sum up, this is what I got as my key takeaway. One of the key takeaways, the one of co-constructing success criteria. One was that they were able to develop a sense of ownership in the learning process and they became more confident, and they were able to find the rules on their own. I did not tell them the rules. They already had a basic framework in their mind, but they created the statements on their own. And through the strong exposure to reading, through different model texts, they were able to elicit those rules that they believed needed to be in when we are writing a narrative. And I made sure that it was purely contextual, based on their own experiences, based on recent things that might have happened in their life. So I could slowly go to my goal, which was to write a narrative on their own. And in the end, I found out that the narrative that they wrote in the end was much more better than the one they had written before knowing this, before knowing what a narrative is or how to write. And I also could find a slow change in their choices, in their reaction of how to write a narrative, and they also felt more interested. So they were more interested and curious to read more, and they were able to write better, explain in detail, because otherwise, what my children used to do was they would just write according to the sentence, according to the so called examination point of view, and then finish it. But when I gave them different prompts, I asked them to write more, to read these texts. So they got the ideas from the text. So I realized that the thing is that they don't like to write, or they don't know how to write. It's just that they have a lot of ideas and they can speak well in Hindi or Haryanvi. They can speak those ideas well, but when it comes to writing, they don't have the right words, or they don't know where to use it properly, or they don't have a structure. So I was able to slowly build that process of sentence structure and writing through this task, and even the rules that they created, it was something that they built on their own. And when they wrote the final narrative, I asked them to check the rubric that they had created, and I gave them an individual and a group task. So I made sure that they would write an individual article or also a group article, so that their speaking skills and their presentation skills, their ability to defend their points on their own, is also built in the process. So these are some references which have been useful for me in the process. And one more interesting thing is that when I conducted the same thing along with another teacher when I was working in an international school, here it was an easier process because they already have exposure to the language. And I was a little apprehensive whether this can be done the same way in a rural community school where they mostly speak in Hindi or Haryanvi. So I was not sure where they would do the same thing. But I realized that different thinking routines, different VTRs, or different ways of writing, different ways of inquiry building can also be practiced in a school where the resources are limited, with the right people and with the right people to guide you. So this is the end of my slide. We could open for questions.
Thank you so much, Miss Maria George. If you can stop sharing the screen, we can have a better view, please.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I have a couple of questions from my end, Miss Maria, based on the summary of your talk. How did you introduce the concept of success criteria to students who had never encountered it?
So I did not verbally tell them that we are going to create a success criteria. I did not tell them we are going to create this in the beginning. What I first did was during the SEL sessions, during the social emotional learning sessions, and during my English sessions, I slowly built this a way of articulating their thoughts and their goals in their own language. And through the writing and the reading process, I ask them what they want to do and what should be done in order to achieve it, not only in English, but also even in different conversations. I was also the class teacher. So when I'm talking to them or when we are having a group task, I ask them that we need a goal and we need to achieve it. So we need to do this together. I did not verbally express it in my words that we are going to create the success criteria and we need to frame learning outcomes. So this came from their own thinking and from their own mind. And in the end, I told them, so this is what we created. This is your own thing. And this is not something that I gave you. That is how I came to the main idea of creating a success criteria.
Nice. So how did you handle students who struggled even with Hindi or Haryanvi expression?
That was a difficult task, but the thing is, I gave them different level reading materials. I did not force them to read a text which is completely alien to their context. Before before giving them a library text, I used to make them different reading passages, which is based on the context, based on names which are familiar to them. So when they read this, they are more interested. Sometimes it could be something about a mela happening in their village, or maybe something a match, or the panchayat, or a wedding. So when they are reading this, you might have there are books like Eklavya, Pratham. So I made reading materials and stories which they can relate to, and slowly they were able to build that vocabulary. I also slowly built that vocabulary in the reading worksheets which I have given. So I introduced new words, and they are generally the learners which I had the opportunity to deal with. They were very curious learners. So they were more proactive, and they were able to build that. They had that innate vocabulary already in them from grade 6 and grade 5. So through that, I was able to get to my goal of making them write and express in English, which is a different language to them.
Nice. So, ma'am, how did you differentiate the three essay levels, basic, developing, and advanced?
How did I differentiate, or the children?
You differentiate.
The thing, I gave them a common topic, and the thing is that the content that I had made on my own was something which was very advanced. So I reduced the level. I followed the same pattern. I reduced the number of maybe the good vocabulary. I used more simple vocabulary for the basic one, and I used a little more advanced vocabulary. So the children in grade 7 are on the developing level. So I used some kind of vocabulary which they already know in the developing level. And when I went to the next level, I used a little more advanced sentence structure. I used a lot of similes. So slowly the level was progressing, and they could see the difference. Like in the first article, the same content would be expressed in just 10 lines, but when it went to the next one, it could be expressed in 100 words, and then the next level it was 300 words. So they could see that the level was increasing, and the same content was getting a little tougher and tougher. And that was how I differentiated the levels.
Nice, ma'am. So, what role does this sentence starters play in bridging mother tongue to English?
The thing is that the content is good, so maybe they can speak in broken sentences. They can speak about the same thing in broken sentences starting with because. Most of them, they start a sentence with because or that, but they don't know how to start a sentence. They or sometimes they use the same thing, like I can do this or I must do this. They use the same thing again and again. So I made sure that when they are speaking, I had a set of sentence prompts written on the board always, in my opinion, or I think, which I had done in grade 6. So they had that was a pattern that they had to memorize. That when you are speaking, you have to start your sentences like this. Through constant practice and through constant reinforcement and through constant activities, thinking routines, I got to the point where they had to express anything, whatever they speak. Not only English class, if they want to speak anything outside of class, they have to use something. When they are talking about a fact or opinion, they have to use sentence structures like according to me, or I think that it is going to rain today. So you have to use those words always. So that was a pattern which I tried to reinforce in their minds.
Miss Maria, how did students react initially to self-reflection tasks?
Self-reflection was the first hurdle that I faced. They did not know how to reflect. So that is something. They were not very self-aware. So they don't know how to self-reflect on their own self. They can talk about about other strengths and weaknesses, but most of the time when they are talking about themselves, they might focus more on their weaknesses and not on their strengths. Or if I ask them, how do you think we can improve? So they don't know what can be done. They need a teacher to tell them, okay, what should I do, ma'am? Because that is one thing which is usually happen. The teacher, the student. So teacher tells them what to do, and they will do accordingly. So they themselves didn't know what to do. And what I did was that we have circle times, morning circles, and during these sessions, we have to talk about our feelings and what we need to do. So this also involves a lot of prompts, and a lot of activity. So when they are talking, they have to think, they have to first say what they are feeling now and what can be done to improve it and what are the steps to achieve it. That is done in the mother tongue. So slowly, when I'm speaking to them in English, I use certain words on my own. I use certain vocabulary, and then when I keep on repeating those words, I feel that way. I feel happy, or I don't feel, I feel anxious. So they slowly started using those words and they started connecting it to their personal experiences.
So, how did you handle the transition from Hindi expression to English writing?
We have because they are bilingual, because their first language is not Hindi. We have a set of words and also the Hindi meanings written on the board. So they have it also in their book. And when they are reading when they are seeing the English sentence along with it, the Hindi is also there. So when they are saying the meaning, I don't ask them to write the meaning in English. I ask them to write it in Hindi so that they can understand. Even when they are writing word meanings, I don't ask them to by heart it. They have to understand the meaning in Hindi, and even the meaning is elicited in Hindi so that they will not forget the meaning.
So, Miss Maria, how did you use the ranking of writing rules to build the final rubric?
What I did was I wrote all the statements that they told me, that you need good punctuation, it has to be written in a structure, it has to have good connectors, joining words. So I consolidated all the points, whatever they told me roughly on the board, and I wrote them just as a common list. And from that, I asked them, okay, so both of these sentences look the same. So how do you think that this can be made one? And so they found some similarities, like both of them talk about the same thing, sentence structure and tenses. So they were saying things like we can use tenses or we can use verbs. So I asked them, okay, so can this both be combined into one sentence? And then they realized, okay, we can do that, and they combined it. Also, when they found something that is more or less, it all depends on how we ask. Okay, the one about similes is not very important when we are writing an article, but it is important. But can this be given a third level? The first rule of writing is it has to have punctuations. What is the most important rule which has to be followed? So that is punctuation. And slowly they realize, okay, this is not very important. This is important, but not compared to the other point. So this can come second, or this can come third. So that was how they were able to rank the different rules of writing.
Coming to the startup, ma'am, what role did the LingoLilt startup play in refining this methodology?
So, as a co-founder of this startup, I was able to use a lot of online tools, and I was able to use the worksheets which I have made in as part of my startup, where we use a lot of materials from my previous schools, and also the materials which I have made based on the context. So I was able to make use of a lot of online learning tools in my own class, and as a result, a lot of things which the methodology of my Lingual startup enabled me to do my work as a teacher better.
Great explanation, Miss Maria. Wonderful answers, ma'am. And I thoroughly enjoyed the session. Anything else you want to mention before I end the session?
No, I just want to appreciate the initiative of hosting different sessions. I have also attended a few sessions, a few previous sessions, and one of my colleagues also hosted a session, I think last year. So I think it's a really good thing that you are doing this initiative so that people who are not aware of such things happening in education, this is available to the general public. So I really have to appreciate that. Thank you.
Pleasure, ma'am, to host you. Thank you for sharing your knowledge on our platform today. I'll end the session now.